Inayathinnai, this is a platform, courtyard in the cloud, that was created almost a year ago during the difficult Corona times to help explore our heritage, literature, culture, and traditions of India, and to share our experiences together. Today we have with us a wonderful lady, Liesbeth. India offers us the only remaining unbroken connection to the ancient civilizations through living tradition of the past, she says. Exactly a quote from her blog. Traditions are an ancient code for which we have lost the key. And one lovely blog that I liked was around Adi Perikku, which kind of explores around the Tamil ritual calendar, was already functioning in 1000 BCE.
Yep.
And the amazing meaning of Shiva's cosmic dance, the Akasha Linga, the Indian Sphinx, the astroarchaeology, and much more. She says the balance, the harmony, and dynamics have made the image of Shiva, the divine dancer, as one of the most recognized Indian icons. What much more tribute can you do? And her dancing career started as young as age 10, exploring the traditions of India. It gives us great pleasure to have with us today Liesbeth. Thank you so much for taking the time and effort to share with all of us your experiences. Thank you so much.
Okay. Welcome to all. Thank you for having me. I'm honored. So I'll tell you where this all started. Yes, I was inspired on an early age by ballet and then Indian dance. Although I started learning only when I was about 22. The Indian dance. But I think behind all this, there is an other inspiration, which is the question, why? Why all these rituals? Why the temples? Why the gods? Why, and not just in India, everywhere, even why Christianity? Why Islam? Once we ask why, we go on a quest, because we as human beings, the question why is kind of spurring us. India is full of ancient traditions, and people are performing them and experiencing them and sharing them, giving them form year after year, every day, from early morning till late evening. And when you ask why, they don't have the answer. And that was what I realized in my first visit to India, was if you have these ancient traditions, which from my intuition told me are extremely valuable, and one day somebody who's going in trance and dancing with the swords and slicing the lemons in the air, one day they will ask, why am I doing this? And if there is no answer to that, they will think it's superstition. Why am I doing this? Why am I devoting myself? And when there is no answer to the why, things become meaningless. That's what happened here with Christianity. I mean, this part of the world has been banged into being Christian for about 1500 years. And now somehow the church has lost the grip. So, I mean, how many people remain if they are not whipped into church, you know, they don't go, because there is no answer to the question why. And I was worried 40 years ago at my first visit to India that the same could happen in India. And sorry to say, I've seen it happen under my own eyes. And this is what connected Rajya Dikshiter, one of my masters, and me. He was also my partner. And he was a Dikshiter, and he asked why. And when he was there, nobody in his community was interested. No Indians were interested. The only people who were interested, the only people who wanted to hear from him were Western people, hippies, strangers, academics. And the academics would go home and not hear anything he had said whatsoever and write down what they had decided in advance to write down anyway. Okay, so, but we are here today to talk about Lord Nataraja's dance, and I am going to share my screen. So, dancing Lord, my Ishta Devata, he who dances in my heart, in everybody's heart. This is, can everybody see it, by the way? I don't see you anymore.
We can see it.
Okay, I only see my own screen now. I don't, normally I get these small blocks that I can see, but that's, okay, fine. I will just tell my story. If, you know, if you have questions, please write them down. We'll talk about it in the end. I'm going to try and give this sort of like in a bit of a fast flow, and then we'll talk about details later. So basically everybody knows the Ananda Tandava, Shiva's cosmic dance, in this form, with the hair spread, with the prabha, and this is the Murti, which is in Amsterdam in the Rijksmuseum, which they bought somewhere in the 30s. So they think, you know, there is no proof it was ever stolen. So they're not particularly scared of Vijay Kumar's work. And of course, I think it's lovely it is here. On the other hand, it should be in a temple. We can make a replica, you know, make something that looks exactly the same with prints nowadays. And the originals should go to the temples where they belong and be under worship. But this Ananda Tandava is actually not the Ananda Tandava which is known as the Sabhanayaka, the Lord of the Sabha in Chidambaram. There is both iconographically and definitely also doctrinally, there's quite a strong difference. Because this is, Raja told me, this is also known as Shanti Kutu. This is the end of the dance. And you can see that because the hair starts falling down on the shoulders. And one of the differences, the main differences are in the headdress. For instance, what I learned is the Lord wears a crane feather, the moon, a kudumi, like the Dikshitars, and the moon, and the datura flower, no skull. The other Ananda Tandavas, we know, they all have a skull. And he is accompanied by these two musicians. These, what I understood from the tradition, although very little is known about it, and they're not even properly mentioned in the Chidambaram Mahatmya. They're Banasura and Banagopa. And this is how a Dikshitar made the drawing. It is from the previous generation. This is a generation from Raja's father. I don't remember the name. So this is how most people know the Lord. This is sold on every street corner in the Chidambaram, of course. And we see here the dancing Lord, who is always accompanied by Shivagami. And that is essential for the doctrine. And then we find another several. And as another thing is the Chidambaram Rahasya, the secret of Chidambaram, where we find the leaves. Oh, lost the word again. Okay, it will come back. Sort of, let me take you on the journey of the Purana. In these are the paintings from the ceiling of the Shivagama Sundari shrine. These are, yeah, I think they're quite early, very beautiful. And the story starts with Shiva as Bhikshatana, the divine beggar, and Vishnu as Mohini, the enchantress, who go to the, who join together to visit the Daruvana, the forest of the pine trees, which could be in the Himalayas, which is a mythological place, which could very well be an astronomical designation. It is in the Daruvana is a Puranic element which is found in many myths. And they go to visit a bunch of rishis who are doing their meditation, and they ignore God, so they kind of, they're kind of on a wrong path. And this is shown by the fact that the rishi wives fall for the beauty of the divine beggar, and the rishis, they fall for Mohini. So here we see the rishis chase Mohini, and once the rishis realize that this is not an ordinary visitor or an ordinary mendicant, and that actually they have lost their spiritual power, they start a magical fire. So they start this big yajna, and they conjure through magic, through mantras. They conjure all kinds of ferocious creatures. They conjure the deer, which Shiva takes in his hand. They conjure the tiger, and he rips the skin of the tiger and wears it as his, he covers his nakedness with it. I think those are the sort of details where we should sort of go into and look for the hidden theological meaning. And then, you know, he said they sent a Mualaga, Apasmara, which is ignorance and faintness, and he tramples on his back, and he starts his cosmic dance. So this is the introduction to the mythology of Chidambaram. And the next stage is that two saints, two mythological figures or historical figures who are inspired in different ways through to want to see this cosmic dance, are sent in different ways to Chidambaram. First of all, there is Vyagrapada. When he's a young boy, he already sort of longs to be with Shiva, and his father tells him, okay, you know what you do, you go to Chidambaram, Lord will go, at the appointed time, he will come and dance, and yeah, then you can be with him. And Patanjali is actually the incarnation of Adishesha. So when Vishnu became Mohini, he suddenly became heavy, and Adishesha asked, Lord, why are you suddenly so heavy? And Vishnu told him, yeah, I'm witnessing the cosmic dance in the Daruvana. And then Adishesha said, oh, I wish I could be there also. And so then they agreed he would be incarnated as Patanjali. And they both arrived in Chidambaram, first Vyagrapada and later Patanjali. And they both started worshipping, and they waited for the full moon in the month of, in the full moon in Pusha in the month of Thai, when Shiva was, had been announced already that he would come and dance. This is another of these strange details, which I think are very meaningful. Vyagrapada was originally a normal human being, but because he couldn't pluck the flowers, he couldn't gather the flowers before the bees were always earlier, he was upset, and then he prayed to Lord, and he was given half the body of a tiger, but also also tiger claws, but also eyes in his hand and feet. This is a detail which is often sort of missed in the recounting of the myth, but I think it's an important detail. I can't tell you the meaning, actually. I've been thinking about it for about 25 years or so. But I mean, that I would have to sort of delve into the whole meaning of eyes in the hands, eyes and hands, the meaning of eyes. And but it is something we shouldn't forget if we want to understand the meaning. And then Lord arrived on Thai-Pusan on a Thursday and commenced his cosmic dance in the Chidambaram under the golden roof. So here now we are in today's temple. We don't know how long ago this myth was created, or the tradition was created. The academics have this this sort of project going on to try and make it as late as possible, but they have a problem with the invasion of Malik Kafur, because they can't push it after 1311, because we know at that time the temple tradition existed, and Lord was taken by the Dikshitars in exile for 70 years. So, I mean, you know, they can't push it later than that. So that is kind of their, but they do all kinds of things, like postulating that there were two Tirumulars, because if they accept that the Tamil Tirumular, a Tamil Tirumular and a Sanskrit Tirumular, and that somehow, you know, he was late, he was also 12th century, because that fits, because then they can project it on Kashmir and Kashmir Shaivism because of the doctrine. And I wonder whether they really understand the doctrine. I don't understand the doctrine. I don't think I do, not properly. I mean, it's not the thing that I've been doing for the past 30 years. So we have here the golden roof, and we have the Kanaka Sabha in front. So we have the Chit Sabha, the hall of consciousness, the hall of wisdom, the Kanaka Sabha, the golden roof, which is not the one with the golden roof, that has a gold plated roof, the Nutta Sabha, which is here, the Deva Sabha, and the Rajya Sabha, which is the 1,000 pillars hall. And then, of course, we have the Shiva Ganga, and we have the 100 pillars hall, and the Shivakama Sundari shrine, and behind that we have the Murugan shrine. And sort of in the corner here we have the Vinayaka shrine. Here you can see this is the Mukurini Vinayaka shrine, and again the golden roof, the Deva Sabha, the Kanaka Sabha, and the Vishnu shrine, because one of the specialities of Chidambaram, of course, is that Vishnu actually has been present from the beginning. And of course, there's some history that happened there, which is not entirely clear, and a lot of ideology going up and down. I don't want to go deep into that now. I mean, if there are questions about it, I could tell you sort of angles to that, which I heard from the Dikshitar, which is quite different from what we find in the history books. And we have, of course, two of the four Gopurams. And once again, the golden roof. Now, this is the sanctum, the main sanctum of the Chidambaram temple, the Holy of Holiest. And under this golden roof, God is present in three forms. It is present as a form, as an Ananda Tandava Murti. I will go into that next. As a formless form, which is the Shiva Linga, which is the abstract form of God, and as formless as the Akasha Linga, which is a form of the Sri Yantra. Of course, it's a secret, so I don't know exactly what is, in what way it is different from the traditional Sri Yantra. But I mean, to me, these things show that these traditions and this knowledge go way back. It is all mathematics. It's all about pi, about phi. It's about pramana. I mean, the whole Sri Yantra is generated from the dot and the triangle, and from the interaction between the angles of the lines. And I mean, there's a world behind that, which I can only kind of I'm aware of, but I'm not a specialist because I'm not particularly good at mathematics. But I do realize that there is so much in it, and so much could be studied if people would take the trouble. Okay, the Ananda Tandava Murti of Chidambaram, the Sabanayaka, the Lord who dances the dance of bliss, the Shanti Kutu, the dance of peace. First of all, the main thing is that the hair starts falling down because he's concluded the dance. He danced in the Daruvana. Actually, then he danced the Tripura Samhara. There is a tradition about that. But I do have limited time, so I'm not sure I can go into that here. And then, but it is very important. And then there are the specifics of this Shanti Kutu, of the Ananda Tandava at Chidambaram, which show this difference. We have the feather, the crane feather. A lot of literature says peacock feather. It's a crane feather. It's in the Maya Mata. Then there is the Datura flower. There is the Kudumi. There is the moon. And of course, there are the Panchakrita. I will go into that a bit further. With the hand pointing to the feet, that gives the liberation. And there are the two musicians, Banasura and Banagopa, who play the pot drum and the talam. And I think, you know, all these items, all these, the damaru and the fire, I think it all has its own doctrinal meaning. And some I understand a bit, and others I have no idea. But it is an amazing. This is again the face. According to Raja, every murti which shows this must originally have belonged to the Dikshitar family, the small ones. They must have belonged to their home puja, and out of whatever historical reason, if they are found in somebody's collection or in a museum, it means people had been forced or persuaded to give them away or to sell them. But anyway, we have here the moon, we have the crane feather. I think here it is quite obvious that it's a crane feather, actually. The Datura flower, the Kudumi, and the two different earrings. That's also clear in this. And then the musicians. This is the small one is also held by the Rijksmuseum here in the Netherlands. But I mean, I couldn't photograph it from the back because, you know, it was in a showcase. So I have only the front photos. We get back to the other form of Ananda Tandava. I'm not sure about the difference. It could be that the Ananda Tandava with the wild hair and the skull belongs to the Daruvana legend, Purana, or there could be other doctrinal reasons why this form is different from the Chidambaram form. And of course, an important element of the doctrine of the temple is that of the 5 activities, the Panchakritya. And they are, the 5 activities of Shiva are creation, which is given shape in the Damaru, here, the drum, the sound within the drum, the emptiness and the sound and the vibration. That is what the sthiti, that is what starts all the creation. Everything. You know, the Big Bang. I don't know whether the Big Bang happened in the way the Western scientists think, But one thing is for sure, that vibration is the essence of all materialized creation. And that is given shape. I mean, remember, these murtis were created, this doctrine existed in the 10th, 11th century. The understanding that came from the spiritual vision of the people is amazing. I mean, and now the Western people think they know everything better. Okay, the fire, which is the fire of Samhara, which is annihilation. It is not destruction. It is nothing is created nor destroyed. The one is taking the other form. And we see that, of course, when we look out there in the cosmos and we see the observations the astronomers make about whole galaxies sort of merging and exploding and forming new stars, and stars exploding and becoming black holes and exploding again. So yeah, I mean, in this, for life to be perpetuated, you know, we feed on one another, we feed on the plants, we feed on the world around us, and we are being fed upon. So there is this eternal transformation happening. And yeah, we are just children, we're just kindergarten when we think of it. So here is the preservation, the hand that protects, the hand that says, fear not, the hand that is facing south, because the Chidambaram temple is facing south and the Nataraja Murti is facing south, and the hand states, fear not. And he does this towards Yama, towards the direction of death, because we need not fear death, because with his other hand, he points to his lifted foot. And his lifted foot, there we find the liberation. We find the anugraha, the bliss, the grace. This is what we long for, to join this foot, you know, never to be separated. And of course, there is one more very important activity, which is the tirobhava, the concealment, which there is some contradiction about it, but Raja thought we should find it in the space, the emptiness between the standing and the dancing foot. So that's how I've come to understand it. And it is the foot itself which eventually actually gives this liberation, where we find our, where we find our home, our spiritual home. And of course, there is his eternal smile. The slightly towards the left, the gentleness, the mystery, the all-knowing. And then we're back in the temple, which is grown around the golden roof. There are traditions, there are texts, there is the community of priests, the Dikshitars. There is the golden roof. One aspect of the golden roof, and I don't want to go into it too deeply, is the numerology of the, it is stated that there are 21600, so 21,600 golden plates held together by 72,000 nails. And the plates stand for the breaths, the asu, and the nails stand for the nadi, the tubes in the body through which the prana, the energy, flows, the life energy. But there are very interesting connections there, because the number 2160 is the number of years it takes to for procession to move through one sign. And the word asu means breath, but at the same time it also means minute of arc. So here we join yoga through architecture, through doctrine, through the Ananda Tandava, into the space of astronomy, of sacred geometry, of mathematics. And I'm not good at mathematics, so I've I've known this and I've done some things about it. I talked about it before. But I do think there's a lot more to discover. And here we are back inside the Sabha with the dancing Lord and his mother and the Chidambaram Rahasya, where there is the Akasha Kshetra. So one of the important aspects of the temple doctrine is that it is one of the 5 Mahabhuta Stalas dedicated to Akasha, space. And space, Akasha, basically is characterized by Shabda, which is its Tanmatra. And Shabda means sound or voice. And I think it means that Akasha, that again, it points to the essence of the creation, that it is vibration. And that is also pointed to by the whole concept of pranava. And within the Sabha, under the golden roof, within the wooden walls, there is a passage of granite, which is called the pranava prakara. So when people count prakaras, they always get it wrong because people think there are 4 prakaras in Chidambaram, but there are 5. And the Dikshitars tell everybody, and nobody believes them, but there are 5. And each prakara is dedicated to one of the 5 elements. And this is the Chidambaram Rahasya. And this is the base. Here we see the wooden wall and the base. And I know from the little I know of architecture history is that you have these the moldings here of the base, that it points to a very early date. This is when it has a band like this. Okay, I don't know. And of course, things can have been renovated in the meantime. Now we come to the Dikshitar community. Here is a Dikshitar performing the Vedic ritual, which is performed every morning. The Agna, and it is important to realize that there are many aspects of the tradition which show that the doctrine is different. I mean, the texts have been that are used are not agamas. They are attributed to Patanjali Muni as the author. And I know that there are academics who try to prove that basically the origin is agamic. And well, I hope some people will delve into that because yeah, well, these academics, they have to be shut up. You know, when people do research in a whole continent and they never believe anything that they are told because they come with their preconcepts. I mean, what research is that? It's hot air. Now we get to the festivals. This photograph was somehow taken during one of the flag hoisting ceremonies. Of course, there are two big festivals still. There used to be 3. There used to be a 40-day festival connected to Masi Maga and a procession to Killay, a village near the sea. But that has been discontinued because of lack of funds. And to be present in such a ceremony was always an amazing experience. This is the Nitya Sabha. So this is one of the 5 sabhas. The number 5 comes back again and again and again. So there are 5 activities of Shiva. Shiva has 5 faces. You know, the 5 faces in the upturned face. These are represented by the 4 gopurams and the golden roof. There are 5 courtyards. So there are 5 elements. There are 5 towers. In this way, the number 5 is very significant in Chidambaram. This is the Rajya Sabha. Here, the Maha Abhisheka is performed twice a year Originally, it would have been done in the Sabha itself, which is somewhere in the back. I don't think it's on this photo, but because of the large crowds nowadays, it is performed here in the front part. And there are the astronomical connections. Arudra Darshana, the festival in December, is celebrated with full moon in the star Ardra, which is Betelgeuse, which is one of the shoulders of Orion. And in the Vedic time, Orion was connected to Prajapati. And sort of when you look at the mythology of Shaivic forms like Gangavatarana Murti and Bhairava and the hunter, and you know, it kind of all connects with Orion. Like Gangadhara, like the Milky Way runs here, and you know the way the Ganga is depicted flowing from his hair. It is obviously that that the Milky Way was intended, and there are even reliefs from the Pallava age in which the two dogs are depicted. The Procyon, the small dog, and Canis Major and Canis Minor. Sirius is Canis Major and Procyon is Canis Minor. And that can be seen in the main Gangavatarana Murti in the Kailasanatha temple in Kanchipuram. But there are other Pallava era Shiva Ganga Gangavatarana Murtis where the dog is present. Yeah, this is here. You can see the Milky Way, Procyon, and Sirius, and Betelgeuse as the right shoulder of the dancer, which is of course very interesting because in the West, you know, when you look at our constellations and astronomical mythology all over the world, there are often very powerful links, and but the connection to the Ananda Tandava is quite specifically, you know, as a sacred dancer, not a hunter, is quite specifically Indian. Although Shiva as a hunter is probably also projected on Orion. A lot of research is possible there, a lot of digging and interpreting in the rituals and in the Puranas. And then, of course, there is the connection of the temple to dance, which is especially visible in the Ananda Tandava Murti, but also in the four Gopurams, where the 108 Karanas from the Natya Shastra have been depicted, including the verses. So we are sure the Karanas are intended, and we are sure which Karana is, because all the Karanas have their own verse, and some research has been done. I do believe that the oral tradition of the Karanas has been lost. So, I mean, people who are now performing Karanas, it is all reconstruction, and yeah, every dancer will reconstruct in her own way or his own way. But it is an invaluable resource of the history of dance. And then there are the other dancers. Both the Shivagama Sundari temple, they have this whole gallery of dancers and musicians. And also around the base of the 100 Pillars Hall, there is this this whole procession of dancers. And I think it would be possible to reconstruct the dance the way it was like 800 years ago, in the time when these shrines were constructed, yeah, during the late Chola period, or maybe even earlier. I'm not that sure about the chronology that we are taught in the books at the moment. I wonder whether, you know, some proper digging and looking at astronomical dates given in inscriptions and stuff like that, whether we might not have to come to different conclusions about the age. And my guess is it might all have been earlier. yeah, an invaluable resource and invaluable beauty. I mean, the dedication of the people was just, yeah, immeasurable. And then, of course, there are the Chariot Festivals. This is just a fragment. And they are an incredible experience. Then there is the connection of the temple to the Indian Sphinx, the Purusha Mruga, which was one of the discoveries of Rajya Dikshitar. And there are no Indian temples where there are so many Purusha Mruga as in Chidambaram. And we never quite kind of realized why there is, you know, almost every, or not almost, every ritually significant place is guarded by the Purusha Mruga, which is a creature, a mythological creature, which is stated to purify and protect. These two are the ones at the entrance when you step down through the main entrance, the east door of the Nataraja temple, and you step down. Then on both sides there is a sphinx, and when you worship on stepping down, if you worship, they will purify the visitor. That's their duty. And now I want to look a little bit at some historical aspects. I mean, Chidambaram is not far from the coast. Now it is about 13 kilometers. And, but of course, the old name of Chidambaram was Tilei. And Tilei is the mangrove tree, the white mangrove tree, which is also the blinding mangrove tree, just quite a dangerous tree, poisonous tree, actually. And this tree only grows when you have actually the seawater entering and leaving. And yeah, the Stala Purana tells that Chidambaram was a Tilei Vana, the Tilei forest. And so the sea must have been a lot closer than it is today. And one of the questions I'm asking is, isn't it a good idea if people with a geological or oceanographic background would look into how, I mean, now the coast is about 13 kilometers away. How long would it take? How long would it take for silt, for a piece of coastline to silt up so much? I mean, of course, this is the Kaveri River. This is the, it has a different name here. So this is one of the main branches of the Kaveri. So that river would silt, and there might also be currents that take sand or bring sand. But I mean, quite a lot of silting has been going on. And looking at the meaning of the name Tilevana, you know, it might be a way to get more grip on the age of the tradition if we would look at it geologically. And the other thing is, of course, this is the Viranam Lake. And the Viranam Lake is an artificial lake. And I understood that at the time of its creation, which was probably done by the Cholas, and there is some controversy about which Cholas, but actually even already before Rajaraja, somebody started building. And after that, all this land was brought into cultivation, and it's very highly valuable land because there's always water, because water is brought to the Viranam tank, both from the Kolidam and from this river by canals. And if there's too much water, it can also help to push the water. I mean, the Kolidam, before they built those dams in Karnataka, the Kolidam would badly flood every year. And yeah, of course, that would bring the silt, but it would also bring a lot of destruction. So one way that they regulated it was by filling some of this water into this lake. And this was the largest artificial lake at the time of its construction 1,000 years ago, the largest all over the world. So this is another very interesting aspect to the Chidambaram temple, how the presence of the temple helped develop the land and through waterworks. And the enormous, unbelievable engineering that is behind these waterworks, behind the Anaikats on the Kolidam and on the Kaveri in Tirchi. You know, it is, I mean, I don't know how they did it, honestly. I mean, if you have running water, which would be running a lot more in those days than nowadays, how do you build a dam? I mean, there will always be water. So how do you build a dam? How do you put your stones in it and make sure it stays there long enough that you can put another stone? I mean, these people, and they didn't have cranes. They had only elephants. So, well, there is some challenge there. And then we end with his smile, with which he blesses us, and which is sort of both reachable and unreachable. And we are maybe all like Mother Ganga, just worshipping and just trying to reach his feet. So that was my presentation.
Liesbeth, that was amazing. It was just a visit stop tour, but
Thank you.
Just kept us all enthralled. You're absolutely right. We don't know how old the temple is.
No.
But archaeologically, you can date it at least to the late 800 AD.
That's what is there now, huh? That is, but I have this theory, which I didn't talk about for a long time because I didn't have any proof, and I still don't have any proof. But I started talking about it. See, Shiva arrives in Chidambaram on Thaipusam, full moon in the month of Thai. Now, there is this is an international thing. New gods, newborn gods, like for instance, Jesus, he is born on the 24th of December because that's 3 days after solstice. So winter solstice is the kind of natural moment for a god to arrive, to be presented. Thaipusam would have been, you know, it's a lunar thing. So you can't, I mean, solstice is a solar thing, so that is fixed. And the moon goes up and down. So, you know, sometimes it touches and sometimes it is a bit away. But Thaipusam would have been, now for instance, now it is Arudra Darshana, which marks solstice. Yeah, in the Margari Masam, between the middle of December till the middle of January. But Thai would have been the month of solstice 3,500 years ago. Thaipusam would have been what is now Arudra Darshanam 3,500 years ago. My hypothesis is, it's a hypothesis, I have no proof, but I'm not going to I'm not going to hold my mouth about it anymore because I don't know whether we'll ever find any proof for this. I think there will be proof. I think if we really dig into the Sthala Puranas, if we really dig into the doctrinal traditions, into the doctrine, you know, I think there will be proof there. But you would probably need some silly story that was forgotten by somebody and they didn't understand the meaning. And so, I mean, I think the tradition could go back 3,500 years.
It probably is. Shiva's association with the South is probably that long.
Absolutely.
We call him Sivan, isn't it? The Lord of the South. We claim he came and started the language Tamil in Madurai.
Agastya did that, I think.
But Agastya came, so it was Agastya, Shiva, and Lord Muruga who created the first Tamil Sangam, is what mythology tells us.
I'll tell you about the Sangha mythology. One of the aspects of the Sangha mythology is the lands that have gone under the sea. You know?
Yes.
So these, of course, these myths are wiped away as silly, ridiculous by all the Western academics. But there was a sea rise, you know, 10,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age. There was a 130-meter rise in just 100 years. That means these myths go back that far. And to me, that's not a problem whatsoever.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, these things, it just takes research, you know. It just takes research. It takes people just digging in. Yes, please.
There is a question from one of our Murali wants you to talk about Tripura Tandava tradition.
Yeah. Well, there is an oral tradition which Rajya was told as a young man or as a child, but which for which we have not found any scriptural confirmation, except that there are interesting astronomical connections there, which are kind of, when you just look at it from the outside, you don't understand them immediately. So it remains quite mysterious. So we have the Stala Purana, the Chidambaram Mahatmya, which talks about the Daruvana and how Shiva came to dance in Chidambaram after he had danced in the Daruvana. Yeah, because Vyagrapada and Patanjali were waiting for him, or because it was already announced. Rajya was taught a different version. He was taught this by all the elderly Dikshitars, and he never published this because he was looking for some kind of confirmation, and he never found it. Doesn't mean it isn't there. There are so many unread manuscripts. There is so much. At the same time, it can be lost, of course. I mean, who knows how many pundits passed away without leaving their knowledge behind? We can only grieve. The other version is that Shiva did the Tripura Samhara in Tiruvadirai. Yeah, so, and there is an interesting astronomical thing there. So he shot the 3 cities, and after that he came to Chidambaram in his chariot. He landed his chariot. That's the Nirta Sabha. That's a chariot hall. We know that. And he descended from the chariot and ascended the Chitsabha and started his dance there. So then the Ananda Tandava is the end of the Tripura Samhara. This is an oral tradition that Rajya was told when he was young, and he never found a confirmation. He never found any textual confirmation of this, so he never published it. But last time I was in India, I came into contact with a scholar, a lady from Madras, who is researching Tripura Samhara. And we found this very interesting, but so far not yet understood connection. Shiva arrives in Chidambaram in Thaipusam, Pusa star. The festival for Tripura Samhara in Tiruvadigai is on Punarvasu star. That is the star before, but it's in a different month. It's somewhere in September or something, I don't know. So we would have to go into this, but I mean, she's busy with her stuff and I've been busy with my stuff. And so we talked to each other for about a day that time. And I'm waiting for her PhD. So, you know, but I found so many of these astronomical connections between Stala Puranas, between rituals. And I know there is a key there, but I mean, I haven't even put it in the hole yet, let alone I've been turning that key. It is just, I know the astronomy is one of the keys to the understanding of the doctrine and the temple traditions. Every temple has its own festivals. They are performed on certain stars. this is not accidental. And then you have, like, you know, you have the different varanas on the different nakshatras and the different rituals on the different nakshatras. There's a pattern there. There's a pattern there. The pattern is so big, I can't see it. But I'm sure it is, you know, it is one of the keys. The Stala Puranas and the astronomy of the festivals. That is something.
We were talking about your session today, and one of my friends was saying, you're having a Dutch scholar talking about Indian heritage. Is there an astral connection? Is she revisiting her past?
Oh,
what
I don't know.
Inspired you to
I
get,
don't know.
other than Bharatanatyam, to get engrossed with Chidambaram?
No, like I said, I fell in love with Bharatanatyam when I was 12. I found a teacher when I was 22. In the meantime, I had started studying history. And I asked why. I asked my guru, my dance guru, Rajamani, I asked why. And she said, you know, when she was asking why to her masters, they told her she was stupid, that the why question is a stupid question. Of course, it isn't a stupid question. It is just a question that a lot of people cannot answer. I mean, you have to really decode things to be able to answer why. But I mean, I have seen myself decode things, you know, like the whole thing about Ganga and Gangavatarana and Shiva is Orion and the Ganges falling. I mean, that mythology, that must have some connection with when the Saraswatis went under the sand and the water was diverted to the Ganga. And that period, that's also, I think, about 3,500 years ago that happened. So, and I believe that we have these ages connected to precession. I don't know if I need to explain precession? Or do you know what I'm talking about? Does anybody want me to explain precession?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please, Liesbeth.
Okay. There is an astronomical, our planet is in an astronomical process in which the points of the solstices and equinoxes shift. And like I mentioned, like at the moment, the equinox point is in Pisces, and in about 400 years, it will be in Aquarius. And like that. And it takes about 2,160 years for the equinox to move. And you know, when the equinoxes move, the solstices also move. I mean, it's a cross. I mean, I have this, I don't know if this is clear. Well, anyway, it's like a cross, you know, so if one point moves, they all four move. And when you look at the history of mythology, you can see that certain phases kind of evolve according to where these solstice points are, and you get kind of ages. And when you read in the Puranas and in the Brahmanas, you know, the rishis will say, okay, you start your ritual on that date, and then they give the solstice. Like these Vedic rituals, the Ishtis and everything, you know, they would go through the year. It was a calendar system. So they would start on winter solstice, and they would move to summer solstice, and then back to winter solstice, and then start all over. And they would mark certain moments. And it was astronomical. And because of that, they knew sort of where the sun was. And I mean, of course, it's also astrological. There's meaning behind it. There's reason for that. And you can see in the Indian mythology these shifts. Like in the Vedic age, Orion was Prajapati, but already in the Vedic age, we had the full list of the nakshatras. And there is an interesting thing for the Tamilians, that the Tamil calendar is what they call a sidereal calendar. That means the calendar follows exactly the this movement. You know, like it takes 72 years for precession to move 1 degree. Now, we have seen in the past 10, 15 years that the Pongal date is shifting a bit. But because of, in the West, we fixed the calendar, that's called the tropical calendar, we fixed it to the solstices and equinoxes. So that's why we have these leap years. So the Tamil calendar will shift, and then after 4 years, it will shift back again because we have a leap year in the Western calendar. And the Vedic calendar is lunisolar. And I don't know exactly how it is because the science is a bit beyond me, but I think a sidereal calendar, there's a calendar which is fixed on the stars, exactly on how the stars shift. So the months are exactly connected to when the sun moves into the next constellation. I think that is maybe a more ancient system than the lunisolar, because it takes more precision, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but I've been thinking about this for a long time. Why do the Tamils have this sidereal calendar and the Vedic calendar is lunisolar, and which is basically less precise? I mean, the Vedic months also, they are different. They have shifted. You know, when you look at Monia Williams, the list of the months, it is it is 1 month ahead or behind, whichever way you look, Sridhar, compared to the Tamil system. So I think there is science behind that also. You know, I don't know how they calculate this shift, but they do. That it's a shifting, and it has been shifting, and so the Tamil calendar follows the shift of precession quite precisely. And I mean, scientific, of course, in the West, it is attributed to some stupid Greek. Sorry for all my preconcepts. I think I have a license for plenty of preconcepts because, I mean, the opposite party also has them. That is the academics. I mean, I never had a career because, yeah, I just don't believe them. So that's a long story. That's a different story. But I came to realize that these academic books are for a very large part, yeah, hot air, propaganda. Mm-hmm. So where was I?
We're talking about the calendars. And
yes.
The precision of the Tamil calendars.
Yeah, I think the fact that the Tamil calendar is sidereal and follows precession very carefully, I think there's a lot of, how you say, knowledge and mathematics and astronomy behind that. But I'm not good at those things. So, you know, once it is, I'm dyscalculic. So the moment it is about numbers and sums, you know, I'm out. But this is important. This is an important subject. The calendar, the astronomy of the temple traditions, and the astronomy of the Sthala Puranas. It's an important subject. So.
Astronomy has been linked to our lives from a very young age, actually.
Yeah, sure.
Which is very true. Yeah. I have a young admirer called Harini. She wants to ask you a question. She's a Bharatanatyam dancer too.
Okay,
Harini?
Please, welcome.
Harini?
Hello.
Hello.
In the Ananda Tandavam, when Shivan was doing it, you explained how the hand was his hand was facing the south.
Yeah.
But in like a normal Shivan pose, like using the Pataka Mudra, like the hand is like facing the front. And could you please explain like why the directions are different?
That's the temple tradition. Lord Shiva faces south and his Pataga Mudra faces south. Because, I mean, he wards off death, which is Yama, and Yama resides in the south. I mean, if we are on the stage, yeah, I mean, when we're on just any stage, we don't know. I mean, but Ananda Tandavamurti should be facing south. Basically, that is the tradition. In temples, you will see you know, when a temple has a Nataraja Murti, he will have a separate shrine, and the shrine will be facing south.
I think Bharani, the answer was in Liesbeth's talk. She said the Karanas have been interpreted by various teachers and there have been various modifications, but the traditional Nataraja faces.
Yeah, but there is no connection between the Karanas and the Ananda Tandavamurti. That is also something that Western scholars kind of experimented with, trying to explain the Ananda Tandava as a combination of various Karanas. And I don't agree with that, because I mean, the 108 Karanas were given by Shiva, and that's mysterious enough. I mean, why these 108? You know, a Karana is a combination of the coordinated movements of the hand and feet. So there are infinite Karanas. So why these 108 were given by Shiva to as Nirta to Bharata Muni? But that's what the doctrine says. And the reality, of course, is, and I think you must know that, I forgot your name, sorry.
Harini. Harini, she's called Harini.
Harini. There is no connection, or almost none whatsoever, between the Adavu system, what we use to dance Nirta today, and the Karanas. There is, I mean, I don't see the link. I studied all the Karanas 2-3 times. I went through the whole thing. I translated the Natya Shastra chapter 4 myself to try and figure it out. And I mean, the Adavus as we have it with the, you know, with the Adavu system, with the mandalas, it is not connected to the Karanas. There may have been a connection once upon a time, but it might have been have had a completely different source. I mean, the Adavus, what we do now, that's all about sacred geometry. That's about symmetry. It's about diagonals and spirals, and yeah, and the straight cross, the diagonal cross, and spirals, which is the Tribhanga. Every Tribhanga is a spiral. I wrote an article about that. And I don't see a connection with the Karanas, the way we have them. So I don't know how that evolved. I don't know the history of that. What we have is we have the Karanas in the Natya Shastra, which is at least 2,000 years old. And then we have the Karanas in relief form in the Brihadishvara temple and the Chidambaram temple and a few other temples. And we have these dance reliefs, like what I showed you in the Shivagama Sundari shrine. And in other, in Balabit and Belur, and you know, in lots of places, there's lots of dancers, so we can reconstruct the dance for that age. And then we have our Adavus, and I'm not 100% sure how the one thing came from the one to the other.
We have Aishwarya next. She has something to say about talk today.
Okay.
She's the person who did the trailer for the event.
Okay. Nice. Compliments.
Thank you, ma'am. It was awe-inspiring reading all your articles.
Okay.
Have you done, apart from Chidambaram Sthala Purana, have you done any other Sthala Purana for any other temple like Tanjavur or Tiruchi?
Whatever I could lay my hands on. But I mean, I need translations. I can't read Tamil or Sanskrit, not properly. And so I'm kind of helpless. Unless there is a I did read some translations, and I read the Schulman book, Tamil Temple Myths. And of course, I heard a lot of Sthala Puranas, what people tell, but that's always the short version. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of Sthala Puranas have been lost in the past 100 years. The manuscripts have been lost. or they've been translated, and the manuscripts it's translated from Sanskrit to Tamil, which is usually done well, when it was done in the 19th century. And then you have all these shortened versions where you have a kind of, short version, which are printed for Kumbhabhishekams and stuff like that. But the real secrets are in the details of the original Sanskrit or Tamil texts. Like this thing about Vyagrapada having eyes in his hands. Who remembers that? Who remembers that, everybody remembers, of course, the Vyagrapada thing and the half tiger, but there's one more step to it. That is, he had eyes in his hand and feet. What does it mean? I'm sure it means something.
Thank you.
Welcome. I mean, I would hope that people would, first of all, save the original manuscripts, and then also get them published in the original language, either Sanskrit or Tamil or Telugu or whatever. They're worth saving. They're worth asking questions to, because we don't understand them doesn't mean they're not meaningful.
There is a person called Uma. She has a comment for you. Uma, do you want to unmute yourself and speak? Yeah, and quite the similar one you had just spoken about, the Hindu mythologies and cosmic phenomenal events. For example, Nataraja, Tiruvadarai and Push.
Yeah, well, for instance, I've been thinking about Lingodbhava, and I'll tell you, I have this idea that the unending linga is the Milky Way, which of course is our galaxy. So that's an immeasurable cosmic phenomena. And that would be the endless fire pillar. I mean, to me, once I saw that, it was so obvious to me. And Rajya, one of the things he taught me once was, for a sacred sthala, you need a sacred tree, a sacred water, and a murti, a stone. And I've realized that these are all three forms of the cosmic river. Hey, you have the sacred water, it's the cosmic river, is the Milky Way, and the cosmic tree, the upside down tree, the banyan tree, is also the Milky Way. That's why the twins, the Mithuna stars, are the banyan tree is under which the horses stand, because the horses are the Mithunas, and the Mithunas are just on the other side of the Milky Way. So, and at the same time, I think that beyond these cosmic phenomena, there are again other layers of mystic knowledge, and it is up to the seeker to walk that path and to find out what he or she needs to find out. Shiva is Orion, so full moon in Rudra, Ardra star is dedicated to Rudra. Why that is? That's an interesting one. The nakshatras are found in the earliest layers of the Veda, and they are already fully formed there, and they have their dedicated planets, dedicated deities. And so for Ardra means fresh, green, and at the same time his deity is Rudra, which is the howler, fiery, red. So, well, that's another mystery. For next life, I don't know.
Liesbeth, about Vyagrapada's hand, and the eyes on his hands and feet. See, I think that probably the mythology was carried to an extreme. In a sense, from whatever research that I have done so far, my strong, the results of what I see are that Vyagrapada was actually a human being. I mean, he was not, he was not this anthropomorphic sort of mythic being, half tiger and half human. He was actually a human being. Probably from what we can see from the various scriptures, is that he was extremely diligent, meaning almost obsessive. You could say something like a compulsive obsessive disorder, where he, for him, the gathering of the flowers was an obsession before, well before the sun rose. So, I mean, that he had strong feet, that he had strong eyes, and he had probably, over time attuned his vision to be able to see even in the dark. Probably, that he would climb up these trees, which was very unusual for a person to keep climbing up and down trees. So I think that it was just to exaggerate the fact that there was an individual who was so obsessed with gathering these flowers that he wouldn't want even the bees to touch them before they were, sort of offered to the Lord. I think that's all it was. Maybe you can very clearly see from the inscriptions that he was a human being. I mean, there are clear inscriptions. There is enough Sthala Puranas to say that he was a human being. He was no mythical character, that existed at some point, who was, anthropomorphic, half human, half like.
Yeah, I mean, but that's a rationalization, Murali. And for me, the meaning of Puranas are also in sort of what's behind it. But I mean, then we have to go into the meaning of eyes, and it is such a big subject. I have no doubt about historicity. I have no problems with the possible historicity of these figures, both Patanjali and Vyagrapada.
There is an alternative comment. Perhaps he has his eyes on everything and everyone, and it is depicted in all.
Yeah, something like that. Sure. Yeah, that's a nice one. Yeah.
Liesbeth, thank you very, very, very much.
You're very, very welcome.
I won't trouble you for more than an hour, because I know you're still struggling with your breath, but you have kept us all fascinated. Well, we had a brief chat before we went live about how the West portrays its pre-confirmed theories on what is present-day Indian culture or heritage. And there is so much ancestry, so much.
Oh, you guys are so rich. And you haven't got a clue. Sorry.
That is the problem.
The people who have migrated, of course, the migrants, they're a bit more aware. But and people who have come back, like Murali, But yeah, I mean, I know it's the same when you live in a city. Like I lived in Amsterdam for quite some time. And when you're surrounded by all of it, you don't notice it anymore. You take it for granted. We take all these things for granted. And I'll tell you, it is precious, it's valuable. People are also envious. People are consciously working to destroy it, sorry to say. And I mean,
this whole platform.
Be aware and be, take care of it.
This whole platform came about in such a way. You're absolutely.
I understood. That's why I'm happy to present this on this platform.
Thank you very much, Liesbeth. It started like yesterday, and we can't believe it's going to be a year in exactly 2 weeks' time.
Oh, yeah.
So Inayathinnai will be 1 year old, and we have to thank speakers like you, contributors like Murli and Uma and Aishwarya, and even little Harni, who asked the questions to create that discussion. And if there was one spark in the next generation to think, look, this is my heritage, I want to go and explore.
Yeah, that is what I hope. I mean, everybody who wakes up, even if it's just a little bit, it is one more person. I mean, I remember when I first came across Vijay Kumar, which was just a few weeks before Raja passed away. And, Raja was 60 then, and Vijay Kumar was somewhere in his 20s. And he was the first. And then I found, of course, that there were more, but it was only just a handful still. It is still just, I mean, basically through Facebook, I know most of these people. I mean, such a huge country, such an incredibly ancient civilization, so many treasures. And I mean, I know practically everybody who's actually involved with this aspect of it.
Well, hopefully Vijay will come to see you in person. I will phone you and tell you how that's going to happen, and we probably will catch up in person. Thank you, Liesbeth.
That would be nice. Take care. Have a nice Sunday, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Vanakkam.
Vanakkam. And I'm hoping that you have picked the curiosity of everybody around here to go and explore the tradition that they have carried along.
Stala Puranas.
Puranas.
Temple tradition, astronomy.
Fantastic. And I hope you've picked that curiosity and drive and allow us to explore the dimension of ours that we've left behind.
It is yours, eh? It is your birthright. I'm just an intruder. I'm just a curious busybody.
Thank you. And I think it's
You're welcome.
enough curiosity for us to go and explore the world around us.
Good.
Thank you, Liz, and hope to meet you all in another fantastic event and a program next month. Again, exploring another aspect of our rich culture, tradition, and heritage. Iniya Malai Poludhu, Iniye Kaliya, Inayathinnai Malai Vanakkam, Vanakkam.